Right now, we focus on education, as we often do here on our WBCK Morning Show, and we're very pleased to introduce to you, if you haven't met him already, Blake Prewitt, the Lakeview Schools Superintendent. Blake, good morning to you.
Morning, Tim. Thanks for having me this morning.
It's great to have you here, and you've been on the job less than a year, but I think it was like almost exactly a year ago that, the board said, yeah, he's the guy we want, and you worked the contract out, and I think started July 1st.
Yep, it was around about this time last year the board voted to bring me on and started July 1. It's been great.
What'd you do before that?
I was superintendent in Ferndale Schools outside of Detroit. And before that, I was curriculum director in Armada Schools and was high school principal in West Bloomfield Schools.
Oh, okay. So is that where you raised your family over there in the Detroit area?
Yeah, I grew up in outside Chicago and then downriver, just south of Detroit, and raised my kids in the metro area, and both are in college now. So it was a great opportunity to move and come to Battle Creek, and it's been great so far.
All right. Well, the Lakeview District, like all of them, faces a lot of challenges, but I think a pretty solid district. But what's your assessment of it compared to some that you've been around?
No, Lakeview's a great district. It's very solid academically, financially. It's done a great job over the course of the years of educating students. I think like any school district in Michigan, as we're seeing all over the country, finances are a problem. Until as a country we value teachers and we value education as some other countries do, I think we're all going to have some struggles. But I'm very proud of what Lakeview has done and what it continues to do.
What is your background? Going back, were you in the classroom at some point in your career?
Yeah, I have a bachelor's in music education, so I was a band and choir director for a while. So I at one point had a sixth grade choir of 120 kids in a cafeteria.
That's like herding cats.
There were fun cats to herd. It was a lot of fun. But I got my master's in counseling. So from the classroom, I moved to be a high school and middle school counselor, and then to be an assistant principal in middle school and high school, and then high school principal, and moved on from there.
I bet that counseling experience is going to be pretty invaluable right now, pretty valuable in terms of some of the problems that we have, with school shootings and the like. Is that going to help you?
I think it's helped me throughout my career. The first thing you learn as a counselor is how to listen. And right now, more than ever, we need to listen to our students, we need to listen to our parents, and we need to observe what's going on. We know there's a lot of signs when students are in trouble. We also know that our students are going through a lot of trauma in their lives. The hard part is that we don't have the people, not only in the school district, but in our state in terms of mental health. We really destroyed our mental health system a number of years ago. And we can tell you the students that need support, and there's parents out there that want to get their kids support, but due to finances or due to just lack of therapists, there's not the accessibility to help all the kids that need the help.
And I guess what I'm feeling or hearing is that in the absence of those avenues where people could be treated, we're kind of left with one thing left, and that's the school. And there's an attitude that, hey, we're going to keep these kids in school no matter what. Some people are real uncomfortable with that.
So I do think that, yes, a lot of the responsibility has fallen to the schools. When the students a lot of times spend more time with us than they spend at home. So we are in local parent tests. We are their parent when they're with us. The piece we have to look at is even the students that really can't be with the other students due to their behaviors, then what happens to them? Where do they go? What do they do? We have some alternatives in high school. We don't have a whole lot outside of that. We have students that have a lot of needs, and not every school has the ability to help them. That being said, I think in Lakeview we've done a lot of good work with our behavior intervention, our counselors, social workers that we have through the county. We've done a lot with restorative practices. We continue to do a lot with positive behavior support. So we really look at how do we create a positive culture in the schools so that students know this is a safe place and that they know they have adults that care about them, because the most important thing is that relationship. If you can form that relationship early with the student and the younger age with the student, the more you are to solve the problems and work through some of the trauma that they're experiencing.
And, students who are isolated, that can only go from bad to worse, really, in a lot of cases. That kind of isolation just fosters bad thoughts and, as we've seen, some bad actions.
Yeah. In my time as a counselor, I think about the number of times, due to the relationship I was able to make, that we avoided some crises. And we're really able to help a kid because they were willing to reach out to an adult that cared about them. And in the school, it doesn't matter if the adult's the bus driver, the cafeteria worker, the counselor, the teacher, the administrator, the superintendent, that there's someone that student knows they can reach out to and they can talk to, and then we can try and find a solution for them. They have to know they're cared about.
While we're on the subject of school safety and shootings and like, I understand not long ago, Lakeview had a former Secret Service agent come in and kind of give you guys a report card. Tell us about that.
Yes, we reached out to Secure Education Consultants, Jason Russell, who's a former Secret Service agent, and he consults with school districts all over the country. And as part of the bond that the community voted on was school safety and security. So we engaged his company to do a full assessment of the district. So he presented to the board, actually soon after the Parkland shooting. We had been working on this report since October. It just happened he was already scheduled to be in front of the board, and went through a number of items that we're already working on, some that we continue to work on, and some is physical safety, of the buildings, but a lot of it's behavioral. How do we train our teachers to respond? The days of, what I would call duck and cover school training is done. Mm-hmm. It's active training. You, as an adult, you have to assess the situation. We always pray the situation never happens, but you want to be prepared in case.
Because if you're not, you're going to be half out of your mind when these things happen, and you're not going to have anything to draw from in terms of knowledge or a plan, for heaven's sakes. So I do that myself. I run through my own mind quite frequently. What if something terrible happened? How would I react? What would I do? Where would I go? If I'm in a situation that feels moderately unsafe, I start looking at exits. What would I do? And so that's the kind of thing that you're doing with your staff.
Yes. And if you think about, if there is an active shooter in the school, especially if you're in a middle school or high school building, just hiding in the room and waiting for someone to come in is not always the best option. Can you get the kids out? Mm-hmm. Do you know where the situation is taking place so that you can get your kids out of the building? Do you have things you can barricade the door with? Just shutting it necessarily isn't enough. There's training I've been through. I went through something called Alice training, and in that training, they have you just sit as a supposed person comes in, and watch what happened, what the casualties are, as compared to when you grab the books, the staplers, anything in the classroom to throw at the person, how you can really limit any damage or casualties. Mm-hmm. Again, it's so sad that we have to think about this. I think about when I started in education, this wasn't an issue. This wasn't something we even thought of. And it's sad that our students and our teachers, this has to be on their mind of how to train in case something like this happens. But the reality is it's there, and our teachers in Lakeview are prepared. Our buildings are prepared. We have a active police officer that's in our high school building from Battle Creek Police Department, as well as we have a retired officer that helps out within the schools also.
And that's the goal of a lot of schools right now. They're looking at trying to do that. Not all of them can do it financially or haven't figured it out just yet, but it sounds like you're ahead of the curve there. What about the PA system? I hear the recommendation was you need a better PA.
Yeah. If you never want your PA to sound like the drive-through at Wendy's.
Right.
So we actually had already upgraded 2 of the elementary schools. Over this last week in spring break, another one of the elementary schools' PA system was updated. We're updating our last elementary and our middle school and our high school. So by the start of next year, all the systems will be upgraded and integrated.
So you can communicate clearly and quickly to just about everybody at once.
Yep. So and that everyone has the ability to send an announcement in case of an emergency. So we have a number of new functions that we'll have with the system, as well as some new speakers, especially on the exterior of the buildings.
What about like a database or entry? Is there any electronic system that checks people's IDs as they enter or that sort of thing?
It will be putting into place at the start of next year through a company called Raptor Tech, where whoever comes in will have to scan their ID and it'll go against a national database and local database, as well as we can put in information. So that way we know who's coming in the building. And if someone's trying to come in that's not supposed to be there, that we know right away.
Blake Prewitt is the Lakeview School Superintendent, not just high school. All of them. How many schools have you got to keep track of there?
Oh, just a couple. We have 4 elementaries, a middle school, and a high school, so around 4,100 students.
Okay, and we talked a fair amount about school safety. What are some of the other challenges that you're looking at in the Lakeview District?
I think one of the overall challenges in any school is how do you help all students achieve, and how do you help them all achieve at a high level? We've been talking a lot about school safety, out in the country, but I think with what we see in Oklahoma and in Kentucky and West Virginia, it's really about how do we educate students to help them achieve. I'm very proud of what Lakeview does. Kind of our tagline is, excellence through equity. So how do we try and make sure every student, regardless of where they come in, can have high achievement? Next year, we're starting our First Fives, which is kind of a pre-kindergarten program to help students that aren't quite ready for kindergarten, because we know those early years are so important. Our high school became an Advanced Placement College Board honor roll school this year, one of the few schools in the state and in the country to earn that designation. We're redoing our middle school. We have a great facility. It's our old high school building with about 1,400 students in it. And we're dividing it into a 5-6 and a 7-8 campus to really create more of that smaller school feel that you get in the elementaries to make sure that students are properly prepared. Middle school's done a great job for years, but it's one of those pieces of how do we get better. So we have a lot of great things going on. One other thing that board just talked about last month, and we just found that we're able to get the money for, is 2 of our elementaries will have therapy dogs next year. So have hopefully in a couple weeks we'll have 2 puppies that we know about, and there's a trainer that's going to be training them for 10 months. And then in 2 of the elementaries we'll have full-time therapy dogs next year.
Well, that's interesting. Sounds great. Understand too, you spent a little money to combat the flu bug over the winter, and I wanted to ask you how that went. There was a system that I think we paid $800 or $900 for or something to get in there, and you shut down for a day and sprayed everything. Did it make a difference?
It did. So we purchased I think it was called a Clorox system. It's a couple $1,000, and when we shut down for that day, we deep cleaned everything, and then we kept every night taking it around the district. Like everyone else, we had a couple weeks or a little harrowing, but after that, things have been pretty good.
It was an unusual season for that, to be sure, and a big challenge for your administrators to try and keep, not just students but teachers in the classrooms.
Yeah, it's not just a student problem; it's also a teacher problem. The teachers are in front of all those sick kids, and they tend to get sick also. As a state right now, we have a substitute teacher shortage. So when you have a lot of teachers out, it's hard to find substitutes. So, we needed our teachers to take some time to get better too.
Yeah, in fact, I have a friend who I play in a band with. He had a sales job, high-pressure job and everything, and all of a sudden that job went away. And he ends up doing substitute teaching. He absolutely loves it. And I guess there's a state program that lets qualified people kind of make that leap and makes it a little easier for them to get teaching certificates and get full-time teaching jobs.
Yeah, there's been some changes that allow that, and and that's great. It hasn't necessarily helped, us get more teachers as the state economy gets better, which is great. That also means some of those jobs like substitute teachers, bus drivers, some of those sort of positions get harder and harder to fill. Yeah. So some of the benefits that people used to get with those positions don't exist anymore.
All kinds of challenges in the school biz, I'm sure. And I look forward to talking about some more of them with the Lakeview Schools and Blake Prewitt. Thanks again for coming in this morning and joining us on the show.
My pleasure. Anytime.